we have an opportunity to say a prayer. And then we're going to talk about Nazareth tonight, sort of. We're going to talk about geography tonight, and Old Testament prophecy, and all kinds of things. And so we've been looking at Israel. We're going to talk a little bit about geography tonight and just the overall look of God's world and lessons to be learned from that. And so here's what I'm wanting us to do for the next few weeks. We're still showing pictures, but now I want to kind of zoom in a little bit and be really specific on, we lose out some of that, don't we? Like if I were to, talk about towards the mountains here, you all know what that means. Like none of you are going to go, are you talking about the Andes, Edward, and the tall mountains of South America? It's like, no. If I was to say, let's all go towards the mountains, none of us are going to start going south. We all know that the mountains are just right there. It's a geographical feature that's very much a part of our universe, right? And so we all, in day-to-day language, we don't have to be marked to talk about geography, right? It's like we're all inundated all around with it. We know that if we go that way, it's bleak. It's flat, right? and windy and flat and windy. And so, and if we go that way, we'll get to the mountains, and then we'll go over the mountains, and then there'll be et cetera, et cetera. So that geography, though, plays an important role, doesn't it? And so, in how things are explored, how people go out and do their thing, how cities are formed, why cities are at their locations, and why we end up right here, for example, all has to do with all this stuff around us. And so Jesus' world was much more integrated into that kind of thinking because they were so dependent upon it, weren't they? We can get by with it being cold outside tonight. It could snow tonight. We could have a blizzard tonight, and all of us would be okay. Nobody's going to die, and nobody's going to struggle with that. But of course, in their world, that would be a huge struggle. And so all of that has a lot to do with, there's more to it than just, okay, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and then he was in Nazareth, and then he lived in Capernaum. That's where we're going tonight. And so that journey. And so I think we all understand that. There are some places and some things when it's at the extreme that it really does make a difference, doesn't it? You start thinking, what would be a big topic? Like, name a place and a topic of geography that surrounds that place all the time. Like, give us an example of what we're talking about, in other words. I'm just saying, where, like everywhere has a connection to the geography. Can you think about some great examples of that? Like, I'll do one. Sheila and I, of course, are there in Bombay. Bombay's a very strange place. It's called Mumbai now, but trust me, even the Indians call it Bombay still. It's just all the foreigners that have to, do this sort of thing. But anyway, you guys know that. Anyway, so you go to Bombay, and Bombay is an island 12 miles long and 1 mile wide. And during the day, about 18 million people are on that strip. So the geography of a 12 miles long and 1 mile wide with that many people, what do you know for sure? It's really, really crowded. That's number one. And so I don't even have to, like what else? We're surrounded by like really yucky water, right? Because there's that many people all around. And so it starts changing the way you right? What else do we know about that place? The land is going to be what? Like, we're in the middle of India, but how much is it going to cost to buy land in Bombay? Extremely expensive. Matter of fact, the most expensive land on the planet is in Tokyo and Bombay. And you're like, wait a minute, you're in India. People make $30 a month. Yeah, but it's 12 miles long and 1 mile wide, and there's 18 million people. So, as we've used before, you can buy land in downtown Tokyo and downtown Bombay, and it's like $25,000. $30,000 is a pretty good reference. It's about $30,000 for pretty good land. That's a square foot, by the way, raw land. And so you can do the math of, wow, I have a 100 square foot piece of property. Well, okay, well, you're going to need to multiply 30 times 30,000 times 100 if you could find that, right? And so obviously it changes the dynamics of the place because of the geography. If we're in, I don't know, Nebraska, out there at, I don't know, York, land's like what, $1.50 an acre or something, right? Because as far as the eye can see, there's acreage all around, and there's nobody. And so land is like really cheap. And a few cows, right? That's about it. And so that's just an example of that. It's an extreme example, but the more extreme the geography, right, or the kind of the thing that's happening there, the more extreme you're going to see us humans having to deal with it. Any other examples that come to mind now? Maybe that makes more sense now. Okay, thank you.
You used to say cooler by the lake in Wisconsin.
Ah.
Milwaukee, the closer you got to Lake Michigan, it would be cooler. Geography. So in the summertime, you'd see people going down the lake to a lot hotter. I'd also say going up north. And that would be going west and going into the urban, out of the urban environment, into the woods.
So guess where it costs more to buy property, right?
Downtown Milwaukee, yeah, big time.
Yeah, that's a great example.
What was that typical?
The lake effect snow that Buffalo gets, right? Where they get, feet of snow all because it's there at the lake effect.
Bought a piece of property in Tokyo for $30,000. It'd be 4,170,000 yen.
Oh yeah, there'd be that factor too. And don't even get me started on what it would be in rupees, right? Because you'd have to multiply it by lots. So how much access to things that we require to live, like water and food and right? All across the western United States, water is a big deal, isn't it?
There's an interesting fact about Colorado that I think not many people realize. There is no water that moves into Colorado. All moves out.
Yes.
Suppose you could get in type of thing.
Well, yeah, and it's dependent upon to that geography, right? And so, yeah. So so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk with Jesus a little bit and use this understanding of geography in the way that the Bible used it. And so, so here we go. We're going to focus back up north again at Nazareth in the Sea of Galilee, Capernaum. And so when we walk with Jesus, we often will find ourselves like in it's just some weird places. It's like, who would have thought that the Son of God would live the bulk of his life, decades of his life, in a place called Nazareth, of all places. A little bitty little nothing village in a no place, in a nothing place. It's just, Jesus visited many places for hours or days or months, but he only stayed in one place for decades. And of course, This is going to become a huge public relations issue from the beginning of his ministry. Even before his ministry started, the geography of his hometown plays a big part in his relationship with others. And so that's what we want to look at. So what do we know about Nazareth? Like, what would people say? It's a podunk place. There's no stoplights in Nazareth. Nothing good ever comes out of Nazareth. You guys are good. See, you're getting it. You didn't expect much from Nazareth. Like, you just don't expect much. Like, what do you expect out of Nazareth? Every place. Where did you grow up, and did you have a little place like that you knew of? You know, I grew up in Lubbock, Texas area. It's one of the prime cities of the world. It's one of the greatest places on the planet. But then you'd have to come from Slayton or La Mesa or Plains or, right? Amarillo. Anyway, no, we all have that, don't we? Between Amarillo and Lubbock, of course, is a great little town called Happy. Are they happy and happy? Can't be. But anyway, Happy did produce something. Happy, you guys wouldn't know because you don't know the regional parts over there, but Happy Bank. There's this huge bank that originated in Happy, Texas, and now there's all these branches all over Texas, Oklahoma, and it's called Happy Bank. Anyway, where do you bank? I bank at the Happy Bank. Anyway, sorry. And so Nazareth. You guys are good. It's like, so where was he born? Bethlehem. Where's the Old Testament prophecies say he was going to be born? Bethlehem. What Old Testament prophecies talk about Nazareth? None. And therein lies a problem. And so it's really perplexing because Matthew is going to say that Jesus lives and grows up in Nazareth to fulfill Old Testament prophecy. But there is no Old Testament prophecy that connects Nazareth with the Messiah. And so herein is our first little journey. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time here with Jesus in Nazareth. And so let's go to Matthew. Let's start in John 1. John 1, because we'll look at that quote in a minute that you guys all know already. But so let's do a little bit of Nazareth town stuff. What was the town like in the time of Jesus? And so as you can see there on the map, Nazareth is kind of right below Cana, just a little bit to the southwest. And then it's, of course, west of the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. You can see there's just several things that we'll be able to see on this map. And I'll show some that are a little better. This one's I really like this one because I want you to see where we're at. And so where is Nazareth on this? So you have to look way down here. If you'll see that there's like, you've got the hills, and where is Nazareth in all of this map? It's like you got Mount Tabor, which is the kind of the round domed one. You've got the Sea of Galilee to the northeast, Mount Hermon, which is the big, tallest mountain, probably when Jesus is taken up to the high mountain for temptation by Satan, where would be the highest mountain, Mount Hermon, way up there. You get the Mediterranean Sea. Notice Nazareth. Where is Nazareth? It's in a little geographical bowl. There's like, see the little range of hills surrounding it? It's like in a little pocket. Bink. So just looking at the geography of this, what could we kind of surmise about Nazareth? It's cut off. Or a better way would say what? It's isolated. There's actually not a main road. This is just trying to show this journey that Jesus takes from Bethlehem when he's born to Nazareth and up to Capernaum. And so Nazareth is isolated. That is really, and how would you be isolated if you're a little village that's not actually on the highway? It's really strange. Unless you climbed over any of those ridges, you could not see Nazareth from anywhere else. And of course, people in Nazareth could not what? See out of their little bowl. So you can see how it forms a nice little bowl there. And at the bottom of the bowl is Nazareth. And so you're only going to grow crops inside that little area, and it's going to support the little village of about 400 people in the first century. And so the people of Nazareth could not see out into the world, and the world didn't see into Nazareth. About 400 was its maximum population. Of course, that's determined by the amount of farmland surrounding Nazareth. 400 people, so you're just talking about a handful of families, right? It's only about 4 acres, matter of fact. The highway, let me do a different map now, maybe. I don't want that one. I don't want that one. We'll come back to those. There we go. And so, do you see the red? That's just Jesus' journey from Nazareth to Capernaum. That's not a road. Again, that's just showing how Jesus is going to journey to Capernaum. The yellow is the road. And so Nazareth is not on it. It's about 10 miles away, but it might as well be 1,000 miles because it's not on the highway. And so remember how we talked about this before. You came up on the coast there, and then it is going to become marshy up above. So the highway actually went right or east, and then by the Sea of Galilee, and then to where? Capernaum. And then from Capernaum, it went on up to Damascus. So that highway is very important, and Nazareth is not on it. And so, matter of fact, you couldn't even see Nazareth from the road. You didn't even know that little village existed on the other side of the ridge. And so, if that's the way your little town's like, and it only has that many people, what kind of expectations should we have for people from Nazareth in the first century? Like, why would we be talking about Nazareth today? Why do we talk about Nazareth today? Because Jesus came from there. Otherwise, we're not talking about Nazareth. Like, we don't really care, right? Like, we're just not going to care about Nazareth. And so we're never going to talk about it. Nobody's going there. Nobody's thinking about Nazareth except for the fact that Jesus was there, and that's where he grew up. So a little bit of, why did he grow up in Nazareth? Because his parents were there. Because God likes to do things differently. Okay, I like that answer. Anybody else? Why are we in Nazareth? Okay. That would be one of them. That's what Matthew said. He said it was to fulfill Old Testament prophecy that he grew up in Nazareth. And so we're going to have to look at that, because why else would you grow up in Nazareth? I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it's just a little place out there, geographically, culturally isolated. So, I mean, he did grow up in a nice little isolated place, away from all the hustle and bustle of the world, I guess you would say. But it's such low expectations for people that come from Nazareth. Okay, let's look at the text, John chapter 1. We'll let the text set the stage for some of this. Here's John, of course. This is When, of course, he gets to Capernaum, he starts choosing these disciples, right? And, of course, immediately, verse 45, Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Notice what John does too. Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said to him, "Really? Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?" It's like, you got to be kidding. The Messiah can't be coming from Nazareth. And Philip, of course, is like, "Well, come and see. Let's just see." But it's like, really? Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. Where was Nathanael from? It's like Philip was, that's where Philip's from. Nathanael's from Cana. I mean, go back to our map. Cana's just right on the other side of the ridge. But notice where Cana's at. It's in that flat area. So Cana's got money and more wealth, and can't you just hear like Nathanael? He's like, Nazareth? Nazareth's that little place that's sunk down in between the ridges over there. It's got just a handful of people. That can't be where the Messiah's going to come from. Nothing good comes from there. And Philip's like, well, let's go find out. Let's see. John 7. So I think that's interesting. It's like, see how the geography makes sense that Nathanael will be willing to question that? Because he's the one that's closest in tune with it, right? He's like, it is just like, can any good thing come from Greeley? And we all know what that means, right? Like, yeah, it's Greeley, right? Well, exactly, but notice it's actually in a plain. So it's got some geographicalness. No, it's not like it's even that much better. We are talking about Greeley and Loveland, right, or something. I don't know. I don't know enough to. The only one I know is Greeley, because I've only lived here long enough to know that. Oh yeah, they come from Greeley. Oh, Greeley. Yeah. Great point. You understand what he was saying? See how the yellow road, and then it's like you can see it goes wonk. See, it's a big giant. Like you ain't going up, right? Who wants to go up? Like I'm not going to go up that ridge to get to anywhere. And so Cana is more like at the level of the road. So I could go to Cana. I could go around there through the plain of that big plain that we talk about all the time, right? And so I can go through Armageddon and hit Cana, but I'm not going to Nazareth. Like, who's going to hike up to Nazareth? Oh, I've got relatives in Nazareth. So off we go. It's time for them to come down, right? And so that's a great point. It's like the geography makes that work, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Then we get... Yes. Right. Where nobody can even find them. I mean, who's even going to know? Yes. Yes. So it becomes such a big deal. Go ahead. Well, no, that's it. Right. 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 right? We're already at a low point here. And then we're even at a lower point of the low point, right? And we're going to talk more about that here in a second, yes. And so that's a great point. John 7, so turn over to John 7, we'll hit that one. Verse 40, some of the multitude, therefore, when they heard these words, were saying, this certainly is the prophet. But others were saying, this is the Christ, the Messiah. Still others were saying, surely the Christ is not going to come from Galilee, is he? Has not the scripture said that the Christ would come from the offspring of David and from Bethlehem, the village where David was? So there arose this huge division amongst the multitude because it's like, well, he didn't come from Bethlehem. He came from Galilee. He came from Nazareth in Galilee. And the Messiah, we all know, is going to come from Bethlehem. So there's this division because, after all, there's plenty of Old Testament prophecy saying he's going to come from Bethlehem, from the offspring of David, from this, right, on it goes, from David's world. But there's no prophecy saying Nazareth. And so there arose this division amongst them. And, of course, it becomes, matter of fact, now let's go to John 19, and we'll kind of finish out John here. By the end of John, John's going to, of course, use it, and it's used by Pilate, right? Verse 19 of John 19, right? And the inscription was put on the cross, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. And so it's like, this is the most preposterous combination of all. It's like geography and royalty put together. That, of course, becomes very offensive, right? The chief priests kept saying, what in the world are you doing writing this on a sign? And Pilate's like, it's done. I've already written it. We're not going to change it. But it's it's just that offensiveness of, he's from a little place called Nazareth. And you've connected it with royalty. And it's like, that just doesn't go. All right, Matthew 2. Let's go to Matthew now, and we'll kind of flesh out this thing and let the geography kind of help us. Matthew 2. Verse 21. He arose and took the child and his mother, and they came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Herod's son was now ruling in Judah in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by God in a dream, he departed for the regions of Galilee, and he came and resided in a town called Nazareth, that what was spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled, he shall be called a Nazarene. Okay, and as we've said, this is a problem because there's not an Old Testament passage pointing us to Nazareth. So what does Matthew really mean here? That's what we want to grasp, and why geography is the answer, or why this is so important. You will hear people every so often say, well, what Matthew really meant was he's talking about the Nazirite vow, but Jesus didn't do that. It's like, Jesus didn't do the Nazirite vow. And so why would it have anything to do with that? That's just something. I've also heard lots of people talk about Isaiah 11, verse 1, where Isaiah says that Jesus would be the branch of Jesse. And the Hebrew word for branch is netzer. And I guess you could say, and people will say, well, netzer is pretty close to Nazareth. And you're like, yeah, probably not. Because Matthew makes a point. And who is it that he says did it? Who did Matthew say is doing this? What word did he use? Prophets. This is a multiple prophet world that Matthew is now wanting us to see. And so we know the answer once we kind of process this for a moment, because we've already been talking about it for 40 minutes, right? It's the geography that's making the difference. The geography is the prophecy. right? It's the prophecy of Nazareth is in the words of many prophets. So let's kind of look at that for a moment, because the prophets are basically telling us you should look for the Messiah in the place that you least expect it. And where would you least expect a prophet? Nazareth makes a pretty good candidate, right? I mean, he should come from Bethlehem because that's the city of David. Well, should come from Jerusalem. That's the seat of power. Well, he could come from, right, one of the 10 Decapolis cities because they've got some power of the Romans. Or maybe he should just come from Rome itself because that's where the big power, right? It just goes on and on. So let's read some of those prophecies and we'll make that thing happen. So you got to go to the Old Testament with me here. So here we go, Isaiah 52. Of course, we'll start with the one that would be most familiar. Bink, 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 bink. Isaiah 53, verse 2, 1 and 2. Who has believed our message? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men. He was despised and we did not esteem him. Like what city should Jesus come from? If you just read that one little paragraph. Yeah, Nazareth makes a good candidate, doesn't it? It's like Nazareth is fulfilling the Isaiah 53 passage. It's like he should come from a place like that. Psalm 22. Here's Jesus' discourse on the cross, where he says in verse 6, "But I am a worm and not a man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. All who see me will sneer at me. They separate with the lip. They wag the head, saying, 'You should commit yourself to the Lord. Let the Lord deliver him.'" And so there's that. He's not anybody special. Do you hear the prophecy there doing that? See, the geography solidifies where the Messiah should come from and what the Messiah will be like. And so, did the Old Testament prophets actually prophesy that he would come from Nazareth? Matthew is saying, yeah, they did, when they said things like chapter 69, verse 8 of Psalms. "I'm an alien to my mother's sons. I am estranged from my brothers." It's like I'm just a nobody. Isaiah 49, another one. I mean, there's a lot of them, of course. We know this because that's a part of what these guys are going to be saying to us, right? These Old Testament prophecies. 49, verse 7. "Thus says the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, to the despised one, to the one who's abhorred by the nation. Kings shall see and arise, princes shall also bow down because of the Lord who is faithful. To the one who's been chosen, the one who's been abhorred, the despised one." So again, there's that. Like Nazareth is almost too good a place for that kind of language. So the geography helps us understand that. Daniel 9's the last one, where Daniel, of course, is going to say the same thing. Where is this guy going to come from? What is it going to be like, this King of Kings? After the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. It's like, what does he have? What do you expect a person from Nazareth to have? You should expect him not to be from a famous place, the prophets are saying. Yep, that's the Messiah. He's a nobody from a place of nobodies. So the geography makes that a compelling thing. So now, with that in mind, what does the geography say about Jesus? which I think is a question that we don't often read from the text, that we should read from the text more often. Like, what is the geography saying about Jesus at this point in time? So he's wanting us to actually gain something from that, a picture, a portrait of Jesus. Like, did anybody outside of a little bowl of isolation amongst some very poor farmers, that's the only thing Nazareth did was agriculture, nothing else? Well, I mean, you know what he made as a carpenter, like all the things that supported your little farmers. I mean, farmers still have to have carpentry, right? But otherwise, like, who knew Jesus when he was 25 years old? Like, who said, oh, yeah, we know all about that guy? Nobody knew him. I mean, he's just some guy off in some little place that we don't even go to. Like, who's even going there? Like, nobody would know about him. It's just so fascinating. It so solidifies his, what's the word? What's the geography say to you? I mean, even the carpenter,
Isaiah 9. Because it talks about in the future he will honor Galilee of the Gentiles. So now he's bringing that into it. And people walking in darkness have seen great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light. So it almost light that's permeating through
Yes.
dark area of land.
Yes. Yeah. It's like nothing good comes from there. Yeah. So relating the geography, yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes. Yep. So here's Nazareth today. Nazareth's a big city today, of course. Right? It's one of the larger cities in Israel. A lot of Arabs, Christians, Muslims. Here's the big church building that we've already shown. And I love this. You get to this place and this building, the complex of this building covers the entire first century of Nazareth. Remember, it's only like 4 acres. So this complex buildings that it goes on to the left of this picture, it's like you can see right in the center there of the palm trees, there's this little covering. That's the place where you can actually stand there and look down to the original Nazareth town, the ruins. So, you know, the ruins are this entire complex covers the ruins of Nazareth. It's almost, and that is exactly what Shill and I talked about when we were standing right where those people were at, right there. You can see right there where the people are at by the palm trees. You look at this building and think, a little different than Nazareth was 2,000 years ago. Well, you know, history, right? Times change. It's like people decided to move there, and there's, you know, transportation, all the different things that happen. I mean, now the city is like you can see, it's like spread out over the ridges and down into the valleys, and it's just time, right? I mean, it's like they decided to. This is a, you know, kind of the building from another angle, kind of the front of this thing. You go inside. This is my favorite contrast. This is like part of the main auditorium to the right, and this is down below what they think, of course. You know, you don't know, but there's only so many houses, so probably Mary and Jesus and Joseph went in this house. They don't know which one it was, but it's one of the houses. I mean, they're basically like, you know, little stone houses that are now kind of like a little cave down in there. And I love that contrast. It's like, yeah, where did Jesus come from? Did he come from the right side or the left side? He came from the left side. And what do we want to do always? It's like there's some lessons there. It's like, it's almost like, am I ashamed of Jesus coming from the left side? Do I got to cover that up? And I just find that fascinating, that big giant building they built right on top of the entire thing. And then, of course, right, Jesus turns 30. And where does he move to? Capernaum. And so Matthew 4, and so we start up that little process, and then we're going to get right where Phil took us here in a second. Matthew 4. Now when he'd heard that John had been taken into custody, he withdrew into Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he came and settled in Capernaum, which is by the sea, in the region of Zebulun and Naphtali. And so, of course, again, it's the contrast. There's isolated Nazareth. There's the wide open international Capernaum. Lots of Gentiles, lots of Jews, multiple times population. Capernaum's big deal was and you can see there that journey going from that little isolated bowl into the spread out fields of Capernaum with the big Sea of Galilee. Lots of fishermen. They, of course, also produced the black rock that was very durable and made into grinding millstone type stuff. All was taken all over the world. A very vibrant, large town that was also very prosperous. And he went from Nazareth to that with this mixed population. You know, if you heal someone in Nazareth, who's going to know about it? Nazareth. If you heal someone in Capernaum, they know in Rome the next day, right? I mean, practically, right? It's just like today, right? That how transportation affects communication. And so Jesus, of course, now has access to a lot of people in this place. That's the synagogue from Capernaum. And so it's just, you can see it kind of going over there to the right. It's like goes on, of course. There's some of the house ruins that are all over. And so you get that transformation. Nazareth is in the tribe of Zebulun, and Capernaum is in the tribal territory of Naphtali. And so both of those come about, right? So John 9, Jesus is the light. Isaiah 9 tells us that his light's going to shine in 2 tribal areas. And there's the prophecy once again of that geography location. Okay, we're out of time. We've only got 5 minutes left. And so what does all this mean for us? Jesus begins, Genesis 3:15, right? God says, someday through your offspring, I am going to crush Satan. Well, whose offspring? Adam and Eve's offspring. How many have become a part of Adam and Eve's offspring? All of us. So it's not a really narrowing kind of prophecy when you say that. So all the Old Testament is really a story of God's narrowing the prophecy down to the right person. And he's using that to help us grow in our faith, right? So we see him go to a certain family, Abraham's family. Not just all families, Abraham's family. Not just all of Abraham's family, but to Judah. And then he does what? To a king named David, right? That he's going to perform certain miracles, that he's going to come from a geographical place of low repute, which is going to take out a lot of people. Because most people are not born in Nazareth. Most people are born in the bigger populated places. And so he's narrowing this down, doesn't he? And so we'll just read a couple of these. John 5, Jesus says in verse 39, "You search the scriptures because you think that in them you have eternal life. But it is these scriptures that bear witness of me." Luke 24, of course, he talks about how the prophets were fulfilled through him. And so I think what this does for us, I think even the geography says, have we lined up with the right religion? Is Jesus all he claims to be? Am I really forgiven? So I think Old Testament prophecy helps solidify our faith in that, doesn't it? That, yeah, Jesus is clearly the right guy. What's one of the things that make him the right guy? He grew up in a place that nobody comes from. And that's what the Old Testament said he would do. And there he did it. How did it change? How do you think the life of Jesus changed? What would that have been like to move from Nazareth to Capernaum? It was culture shock. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had traveled, of course. Right, he'd been outside of his little geographical bowl of isolation, but he is 30 when he moves. Who do you not know in Nazareth? Man, you know everybody. To Jerusalem? That's a good question. Somebody do the math real quick on a map. Right, yeah, it takes several days, of course, because they're only traveling. I have forgotten what the distances are daily. I only know my geographical location. So, what's the geographical location of the Cap Rock? Anybody know?
Of what?
Of the Cap Rock, circa 1850, 1900. Exactly, no more and no less, 8 miles per day. And that's why you'll see places like Sudan, Texas, and Dunn, Texas. You don't even have to look on a map. You know exactly how far apart they are from the courthouse to the next little place. 8 miles. It's a 1 day's journey in West Texas. I have no idea what the 1 day journey is in rural Nebraska. Probably pretty close, right? But so you'll look on a map and go, why is it 8 miles from Snyder to here and here and here and 16 miles from here to Post? And it's like, oh, because those are all wagon day journeys multiplied out. Anyway, and then of course the train came in and made a big deal of it, right? Why is Lubbock big and Plainview's not? And you guys all have your own history too, right? Because in 1920, the Texas legislature decided to have a third college that's a part of the state system, and it was called Texas Tech. And they originally said, let's put it in Plainview. And then they said, let's just put it at another little place. And boom, they did. So, Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we all know that feeling, don't we? That feeling of some dude, and it's like, where have you been the last 20 years? I grew up in, Sweet Lips, Tennessee. Well, how long have you lived there? All my life. How far have you gone outside the county? I've never left the county. This is the first time. And you're like, oh, we all know what that means. We're like, you should get out a little more. And that's Jesus. It's like, can you hear it resonate? You're an uneducated, agricultural, backwater place. How dare you tell us about who God is and what he's all about? Yeah, it just, you can hear it in the Pharisees, can't you? In the Sadducees or in the whoever. Ah, man. Yeah, see, the geography really played into that. It really reinforced that Jesus, how could he know anything about God or about justice or about righteousness or about the law or about salvation or about the scriptures?